Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Now the question is how these water pollutions are being caused. Water pollution includes the following. There we have certain different points which explains why these water pollutions are being caused. The addition of undesirable substances to water bodies leads to water pollution. These substances could be fertilizers, pesticides that are used in farms. These usually contain poisonous substances like mercury salts which are used by paper industries. Now this is a very important and a concerning matter. Now what happens? In the agricultural sector, in the industrial sector, we tend to use lots of chemicals. Now in agricultural sector, we use fertilizers, inorganic fertilizers, pesticides, weedicides. Now these, when washed down due to rainfall, this water tends to run into the water bodies. And these water bodies are then contaminated with pesticides, fertilizers, and all these inorganic substances and chemicals. Now these chemicals are then in turn taken in by the living organisms, aquatic plants and animals, and thus the contamination or the water pollution begins. Another thing is the poisonous substances from the industries are being directly transported and dumped into the water bodies, which completely pollutes the water bodies. And it is these water bodies they tend to pollute, which becomes actually the source of water for our consumption. Next is the removal of desirable substances for water bodies. So dissolved oxygen is used by the animals and plants that live in water. Any change in the dissolved oxygen can adversely affect the aquatic life. Now what happens? Because there is certain condition that tends to happen. Now because of the continuous dumping of waste into the water bodies leads to the growth of aquatic weeds. Now what does these aquatic weeds do? They tend to grow tremendously because they have got waste nutrients. Now these waste nutrients helps the weeds to grow, but what does it happen? The surface of the water gets clogged because of these weeds. So the dissolving or the circulation of gases in the water tends to stop. And the level of oxygen that is required to be present in the water body tends to reduce, which results in the death of aquatic plants and animals. So this has been because of the removal of desirable substances from the water bodies due to pollution. The next is a change in temperature. Aquatic organisms are used to a certain range of temperature. There has to be a certain range of temperature of the water in which these aquatic plants and animals can exist and survive. Sudden change in the temperature can affect the breeding of eggs, larvae of various organisms. Now what happens? Because of global warming, because of these water pollution, because of the presence of different kinds of chemicals, the temperature of the water bodies and the water tends to also change, and due to this change it affects directly the breeding of the eggs, the development of the larvae, so on and so forth. So it is very important that an optimal temperature of the water is also to be maintained in order to let the aquatic plants and animals survive.